WWE 2K25's big reveal trailer is coming around the corner, January 28th. And oh boy, is it not looking particularly good. Hello everybody, my name is Deb, and this is just going to be a general video where I discuss some of the stuff for 2K25, the upcoming WWE game. First order of business. They're being very cryptic through teasers, and we specifically have had two main teasers going. The first teaser was the return of intergender matches, something that has been highly requested for a long time. Now, I see this being able to go down in two ways. I think the way they're going to go is in the singles match type, they're going to have a intergender match option that will allow you to have intergender matches. You can customize the rules, so you can save custom match types of like an Extreme Rules intergender match or whatever. But I don't think you're going to be able to have them go for titles, because I think that would be funny. Let's not, lie. I think it would be funny if, like in the Men's Royal Rumble, number 30 was Jade Cargill, and she wins and defeats Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania to become the fucking WWE Undisputed Universal Champion. But I don't think they're going to have, like, titles be something that you can fight for, and if you can fight for titles, they're probably going to be a very finite amount of titles. The second option, which I think is the option we all want, is the option of just removing gender restrictions to begin with, and just doing whatever. Just remove the gender restrictions, don't make it a match type, and just let us run whatever match with whatever people. So, that's intergender matches. I feel like with all the teasers working toward, we're probably going to see some sort of angle come out on the 28th related to it. The second thing they're teasing, which I think we can basically lock in, is they're adding a city mode into the game. Now, for people who've never played NBA games like me, I've had to do a little bit of research, and it's found that through this, the city mode was a free roam sort of thing where you would be able to explore a city and unlock character parts and shit. But the problem is this mode was extremely grindy for free-to-play players. You had to do an obscene amount of grinding in order to unlock a lot of basic character stats and whatnot. Or you could pay a little bit of dosh to help speed that process up. You see where I'm going with this, right? Incredibly pay-to-win system, locking your fucking superstars behind it, so if you want to create a superstar, you gotta fucking rise them through the ranks. Now, in order for this idea to even really work, 2K has to make a miracle happen. I don't think this idea is going to work. I think this idea is going to be a total wash, which is a shame, because we're probably going to be seeing this game mode kept in future WWE games. So I think it's just going to be a total fucking blowout. Especially considering the fact that WWE 2K25 will still be available on last gen. Now I get it, not everyone has a PS5, but even when I still had my PS4, I was like, alright, 2K24 is the last one. Come on. Let's not keep it on last gen any longer. Nope. 2K25 will still be available on last gen, which means, oh boy, the limitations it'll be getting. Now, the best way that I can see the city mode in 2K25 playing out is bringing back the pack system from 2K19. What I mean is, when you win matches in WWE games, you win like a sort of character unlock currency that you can use to unlock characters and arenas and all that shit. But in the mode, which, by the way, I just want to say, another thing that I think they need to do is make it a My Rise exclusive thing, right? They're not going to, but I think that would be another way that the city mode would end up generally a little bit better. So you have the city mode that's a My Rise exclusive. Got to get your My Rise character through it. In winning matches, you get this currency that you can use in My Rise to go buy packs that will contain new moves, new attire parts, stat raises, all that stuff. While also not a good system, in 2K19, it was fairly inoffensive, because you could still go and do, like, I guess, like, dark matches, right, where you would just wrestle on an episode of Raw or SmackDown, and you would just make currency so that you can still unlock shit quite easily. And also, it would not make it as sluggish. Obviously, the option to spend money is there, but I think what they're going to do is they're going to make the Island of Relevancy where you have to make a custom character, rise them through the ranks through wrestling. It's going to be extremely long, extremely grindy, and you're going to have to pay a lot of money in order to be able to expedite that process to a reasonable amount of time. Let's not kid ourselves. Another thing that I think could benefit this island, make it slightly better, is if it was kept to My Rise, but the rest of the game was fine, right? Like, you could still create superstars and upload them, give them whatever overalls. So, you know, for all the meme CAW creators, they can make a 100 overall Danny DeVito if they wanted to, you know? But for My Rise exclusively, you have to keep that there. So basically, sorry, I'm very bad at English. I think the best case scenario for the city game mode is to lock it behind My Rise, make it so that in order to unlock new moves and clothing parts, you have to open up packs like in 2K19, and not have the city impact any of the main gameplay. Not like I think that they would, because I think in a game like WWE that just functionally wouldn't work. At least with NBA, you could, I'm assuming, go around the city and there you could select what to do, but in a game like WWE, it wouldn't really work all that well, because you would have to bike to or like fucking run to an area and select singles matches, you know. I don't think it would work that well, so I think they're probably going to keep it to My Career exclusive. Which, if that's the case, whatever, right? That's the best case scenario. I think what they're going to do is they're probably going to keep it as a game mode, which then raises the next concern. Is this replacing My Faction? Or is this being released in tandem with My Faction? Because let me tell you something right now. If I have to pick between the Island of Relevancy, which we don't even know if that's the name for it, we're just all calling it that, or My Faction, I'm picking My Faction, and there's a couple reasons why. The first reason for My Faction is it's entirely optional. It is an entirely optional game mode. You literally never have to touch My Faction in your life. Even when they added the addition of Persona cards, those are things where, you know, it would be nice to have, but ultimately, you're just getting a different model of a superstar. Occasionally, you'll get a new theme song, but for the most part, it's just a remodeled superstar with the exact same moveset or nothing different, no overall changes. It's literally just a reskin. And some superstar parts were locked behind My Faction through the addition of Persona cards, but ultimately, My Faction was just a completely whatever game mode. Very grubby, but tolerable, especially compared to the city mode that we're getting, which doesn't look like it's going to be that well received. Because it's not. Most of the WWE 2K fan game community, or most of the WWE 2K fans, are very, very vocal about this not being a thing. Not like it's going to matter, because they're going to release it anyway. But I think the main question here is this going to be replacing My Faction, or is it going to be released alongside with My Faction? If that's the case, 2K25 is already done for. And the game's not even out yet. The game's not even out, and if this is the case they're doing with my faction and the Island of Relevancy being extremely money hungry, that's it. 2K25 will be the worst wrestling game in history, which says a lot, because right now, that title is bestowed to this game right here. Which honestly, the only real bad thing about that was the DLC and the glitchiness. The game itself was relatively fine. And it's coming from someone who put like fucking 800 hours in this. It didn't even really crash for me or glitch for me all that much. The only way it really glitched is if you were doing online or you were actively trying to make a glitch. Also, speaking of glitches, let's be real. 2K25 is going to release an absolutely buggy mess. It's standard practice by now. Let's not be surprised when it happens. Especially considering it's still locked on last-gen hardware, so it might be even worse this year. Another thing to note, too, is that with this sort of limitation, I wonder if they're at least trying to hammer down on it being functional at launch to a degree. Now, to be frank, that is a pretty low bar, considering, WWE games, even in their glitchy stupor, have at least been playable at launch. With the only game having not been playable at launch was AEW Fight Forever on last gen. That game was literally unplayable at launch. On last gen, you would load the game up and it would just crash no matter what you did. So, admittedly, kind of low bar there. Another thing is the matter of what they're adding into the game through base editions and DLC. 2K24, minus the Pat McAfee pack, had quite good DLC options, right? They weren't really strange. Like 2K23, I feel like, was a very whatever DLC roster with locking tag teams like Hit Row behind it. But the DLC, I hope we get like good picks. And if we are going to have any sort of celebrity guest crossover, at this point just keep their own DLC and release it like separate to the season pass. And obviously the potential prospect of a TNA DLC, since NXT has been a thing, and considering WWE did just re-sign a multi-year deal with TNA, it could be very clear ex-WWE superstars that are in TNA will be able to be put in future WWE games. So, first off, I think the main thing in terms of just general gameplay-wise is a fucking overall rebalancing, right? 2K24 did this, and it did not work well in their favor. Because a lot of superstars that had high overalls were dropped to slightly lower, and superstars just continued to get tank. And some superstars got hit for no reason, like Kane. Mind you, Kane, legendary wrestler in the WWE, had a very long run, some unfortunate gimmicks and some unfortunate runs here and there, but a very long one regardless. Undertaker has the same thing. And Undertaker has an overall of 95 in 2K24. Kane has an overall of 79. I have no idea why WWE has such a vendetta, or why WWE 2K games have such a vendetta against Kane. But it's whatever. Personally, though, I hope we get more variations of Kane, considering we get a bunch of variations of Undertaker. Why not give us a couple variations of Kane, right? Have main Kane, unmasked Kane, then have like 98 Kane, and then maybe like 2005 Kane, or, that brief like 2000s era Kane where he still had the mask on. then some of those Kanes can have lower overalls, like Unmasked Kane can have the 79. Another thing is obviously the addition of new NXT talent. Like, I think it's very clear some of these new talent are going to be put into the roster. One of those being such Obafemi, which is cool. But then there's the question of what NXT superstars are being locked behind DLC. Personally, I think they're probably going to do a couple superstars. They're probably going to do something like Charlie Dempsey is going to be locked behind DLC, for example. They might lock Lexus King behind DLC. So that's the question. Then obviously the next question is what superstars are going to be on, because between 2K24 and 25, I feel like the roster hasn't really changed that much. If anything, people are left because people like Ricochet are no longer there. Logan Paul may no longer be there. And that really goes to show, like, outside of a lot of new NXT people, who are they going to add on the main roster? And in terms of DLC, obviously, what are we going to do for DLC? I mean, there's a couple things there, obviously. I guess depends on how long ago they worked on DLC. Now, there might be, an occasional surprise. Like, for example, I don't think we're going to be seeing Penta as DLC, considering Penta debuted quite some time ago. However, though, I think Penta might have debuted a little too early to be accounted for WWE DLC. That's typically how that works. I mean, the time between 2K23 and 24, CM Punk returned in that perfect time window that allowed him to get in. But, I don't think we're going to be seeing Penta or a lot of these other characters. I think for example, we won't see Penta, but I feel like we might be able to see, the fuck was their name? Chris Sabin and their team. I forget the name of their tag team. It's Motor City Machine Guns or something like that. Something along that line. We might be able to see them in the base game. They're probably going to be held in as DLC. Another thing that I think could be cool, considering the multi-year deal between WWE and TNA, either we get a TNA DLC that releases a bunch of superstars like Jordan Grace, Joe Hendry, Rascals, and Nick Nemeth, along with also putting in, superstars that had a WWE run that are in TNA. For example, current TNA champs, tag team champs, the Hardys. Their name may not be the current one, I don't know. But you get what I mean. So you can have those superstars in again. But ultimately, nothing's confirmed until the 28th, where we get the first actual look at 2K25. But I'm gonna be real. Not really gassed for it. The prospect of intergender matches returning is quite cool, but I don't think that's going to be enough to save 2K25. Especially if my faction is released alongside this extremely money-hungry game mode. I think 2K25 is done for, and the game isn't even out. The game hasn't even been teased, and we may just be done for 2K25. Which would be good, because then that would actually force 2K's hand, and it would force them to actually start making a game that people actually care for. Because obviously, if the sales are going to fucking plummet, they're going to have to turn around. And it can be done. We did it with Sony and Helldivers. We gave them enough backlash that they backpedaled out of the deal. Granted, didn't stop them from restricting PS Plus in hundreds of countries. But it is very clear that we can force these people to acknowledge what we want, especially considering they're not going to fix Universe Mode. So, why even bother? Even though Universe Mode is really the only reason most people play the game. So, if this is the case, this might finally be the nail in the coffin for 2K, in which we'll be able to push back against them, and they'll have to actually start making a game that we want as opposed to the same cash grabby game that they want. But in general, we're going to have to wait for the 28th. to see what happens from here. And as more information for 2K25 releases, I'll be making more videos where I talk just in general about the updates and what may come and what may get removed. But for now, we're just going to have to wait for the 28th. Thank you all for watching. If you're interested in seeing more, subscribe to the notification bell to get notified whenever I upload. It's free. You can change your mind later on whenever you want. And I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.